If you listen closely to the steady, low hum of the fluorescent lights in a corporate office building, you can almost hear the sound of human souls slowly evaporating. My name is Grant Sullivan. I am 49 years old, and for 15 years I served as the Senior Logistics Coordinator at Apex Global Solutions. In corporate terminology, that meant I was the quiet, invisible backbone of the entire supply chain department. I was the person who knew precisely where every crate of heavy machinery components was buried, exactly how much it cost to route expedited freight through Midwestern rail hubs, and which specific commercial customs documentation you needed to declare specialized hydraulic parts without getting stalled at stall borders. Over my 15-year tenure, I had weathered 3 major corporate restructuring initiatives, 5 different chief executive officers, and a break-room microwave that had been emitting an offensive smell of scorched popcorn mixed with existential dread since 2014. I was the glue holding the operation together, the man who made certain that physical promises made on glossy brochures actually arrived on warehouse loading docks. Then came Chloe DuPont. Chloe was my newly appointed department manager. She was 28 years old, possessed a degree in organizational communications with an informal concentration in social media aesthetics, and happened to be the favored niece of a powerful member of our board of directors. Chloe strutted through our open-plan office, wearing loud, click-clacking high heels that cost considerably more than my trusty 2014 sedan, carrying an overpriced iced latte like it was a royal scepter. Chloe did not understand the fundamental difference between a bill of lading and a commercial packing slip. She genuinely believed that free on-board destination was a seasonal fashion trend, rather than an essential maritime legal term. On an average Tuesday, she would summon me into her glass-walled corner office 3 separate times just to convert a simple word processing document into a PDF file because Adobe software was being spicy today. Under normal circumstances, I would have swallowed my pride and continued babysitting an executive who believed that interstate freight logistics was performed by magical elves placing cardboard boxes onto trucks. But our corporate ecosystem was about to collide with a massive, unstoppable wall, known as the Thorn account. Harlan Thorn was our largest and most critical commercial client. He owned and operated Thorn Industries, a massive manufacturing conglomerate that supplied vital industrial valves and heavy structural bricks to assembly plants across 6 states. Harlan Thorn was a 62-year-old corporate titan who spoke exclusively in abrupt grunts and rigorous spreadsheets. He cared nothing for modern corporate culture. He felt complete disdain for buzzwords like strategic synergy, and he certainly possessed zero patience for Chloe DuPont's colorful vision boards. Harlan Thorn cared about precisely one thing, that his high-grade forged steel valves arrived at his Detroit assembly hub on Tuesday morning, not Tuesday-ish. His multi-million-dollar contract was up for renewal in exactly 2 weeks. That single contract accounted for 40% of our entire department's annual operational revenue. Losing Harlan Thorn would turn our sprawling office facility into a vacant retail building before the upcoming winter holidays. Grant, I need you to juice up the quarterly performance metrics. Chloe announced to me late one afternoon, leaning over my cubicle partition while radiating a potent cloud of artificial vanilla perfume and profound incompetence. Mr. Thorne needs to see our growth mindset in action. The raw delivery numbers look terribly dusty right now. Can we make them pop visually? Maybe we can use that charming font that resembles handwritten calligraphy. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my lukewarm break-room coffee, which tasted distinctly of battery acid and bitter regret. Chloe, I replied, keeping my voice utterly level. The quarterly delivery metrics look dusty because our primary shipping lanes through the Cleveland Rail Interchange were stalled for 3 full days during the autumn freight strike. Mr. Thorne does not care about decorative fonts. He wants an honest accounting of why he paid expedited freight premiums on 5 containers that sat motionless in a rail yard. You are being so terribly negative, Grant, Chloe sighed, dramatically rolling her eyes while smoothing her designer blazer. Business leadership is entirely about controlling the narrative. If we manifest success and project high energy, the client will absorb that positivity. Furthermore, Could you please take a look at the heavy-duty department printer? It is blinking a red error light, and the flashing color is bringing down my personal frequency. I watched her walk away down the carpeted hallway, feeling that familiar, tight constriction in my chest, the ancient instinctual urge to hurl a heavy stapler directly through a sheet of office drywall. Chloe was preparing to march into a high-stakes negotiations room with a ruthless corporate shark like Harlan Thorne, armed with nothing more than corporate platitudes and a glossy smile. And when that shark inevitably bit, I knew with absolute certainty that she intended to use me as her human shield, the atmosphere. Within the office during the frantic days leading up to the contract renewal meeting became increasingly toxic. The central climate control unit broke down, remaining stuck on an Arctic blast setting that left the entire logistics team shivering in their cheap business attire. Chloe spent her working hours printing out inspirational corporate slogans and taping them carelessly across the conference room glass walls. "Teamwork makes the dream work," one banner declared in bright pastel letters. Another sign pasted crookedly near the entrance read, "Leadership is about vision, not position." The overwhelming hypocrisy was so thick you could cut through it with a box cutter. I attempted repeatedly to present Chloe with our actual operational data. I tried to walk her line by line through the freight variance report secs, printing out detailed heat maps of our delayed transit corridors. She brushed the documentation aside with a flick of her manicured wrist. "Grant, stop drowning me in mundane details," she snapped, adjusting her gold bracelet. "I operate as a big-picture visionary thinker. You are hired to manage the weeds. I am hired to command the sky." The primary issue was staring endlessly at the sky. "Chloe," I thought to myself, "is that you remain completely blind to the open manhole cover you are about to step into." And the primary issue for me was that I was firmly chained to her corporate ankle by a mortgage, health insurance obligations, and 15 years of accumulated pension benefits. Deep down in my gut, I sensed that her obsession with juicing up the numbers went far beyond aesthetic fonts. She was actively concealing something catastrophic. 2 days before the scheduled presentation, the big picture transformed from simple corporate negligence into a potential federal felony. Chloe finally transmitted her updated draft of the presentation deck to my workstation. I opened the file expecting terrible graphic formatting. What I discovered was pure, unadulterated fiction. According to her polished pie charts, our on-time delivery rate across all Midwestern shipping routes stood at a flawless 98%. In harsh reality, our internal tracking logs proved we were hovering near 84% due to rail delays. However, that discrepancy was not the most dangerous element of her document. The real disaster was hidden on slide 7, labeled Inventory Reconciliation Adjustments. There was a specific financial line item, listed as miscellaneous quarterly balance adjustments. In standard logistics accounting, that catch-all category was reserved for minor physical damages, such as a cracked wooden shipping pallet or a lost box of office supplies. Chloe had listed this adjustment figure at $12,000. I frowned, adjusted my reading glasses, and immediately accessed the raw back-end database of our enterprise resource planning software. The secure system that Chloe lacked the technical knowledge to navigate. I executed an advanced query for our physical inventory discrepancy codes over the preceding 90 days. My computer monitor flickered, processed the query, and output a line of raw financial data that caused my stomach to drop directly into my shoes. The actual unadjusted inventory loss was not $12,000. It was $145,000. $145,000 worth of high-grade industrial check valves and precision hydraulic actuators had vanished completely from our central distribution hub. Gone without a trace, and Chloe DuPont had simply erased the discrepancy from the client deck. She had manually overwritten spreadsheet calculations until the bright red losses vanished into clean black numbers. Under federal commercial standards and standard corporate accounting practices, this was not manifesting success. This was blatant corporate fraud. I printed out the unedited raw database log. The heavy bond paper felt ominous in my hands, as though I were holding a loaded weapon. I walked directly into her private office. Chloe was leaning back in her leather executive chair, laughing loudly into her phone about her weekend travel plans. She gestured for me to wait, pointing casually at a chair without breaking eye contact with her reflection in the window glass. When she finally disconnected the call, she offered a cold, superficial smile. "Did you inspect the updated deck, Grant? The soft color palette creates such a calming atmosphere, does it not?" "Chloe," I said, keeping my voice low, steady, and chilled, "we must immediately discuss slide 7. The inventory adjustment section." "Oh, that minor item," she replied, waving her hand dismissively. I simply smoothed out the rough edges. The client has no need to be burdened with internal system glitches. We will locate those misplaced crates eventually. They are likely misfiled in the secondary staging area. It is $145,000 of precision inventory, Chloe, I stated firmly. You cannot smooth out the financials equivalent of a luxury sports car. If Harlan Thorne audits our physical manifests under Section 2 of the Uniform Commercial Code regarding non-conforming tender of goods, he will immediately discover that we falsified our balance ledgers. This is not a technical glitch. This is cooking the books. Chloe's superficial smile did not fade, but her eyes turned entirely lifeless, resembling a predator locking onto prey. "Grant," she said softly, "I do not believe you comprehend how authority functions in this building. My mandate is to ensure this contract is renewed. If we present a massive inventory loss of that magnitude, Thorne Industries terminates the account immediately. If they terminate, this entire department gets liquidated, including your position. Are you suggesting that you desire to be unemployed at 49 years old because of a simple clerical variance?" She emphasized my age like it was a fatal medical diagnosis. "It is not a clerical variance," I replied coldly. "It is missing commercial product. We are legally required to file a formal discrepancy notice and initiate an insurance investigation. Hiding this constitutes intentional fraud and embezzlement by omission." Chloe stood up slowly from her desk. "I am the designated manager of this department," she said, her voice dropping into a hard, threatening whisper. "I have formally approved these presentation figures. You are a coordinator. Your job is to coordinate what I direct you to coordinate. Effective immediately, I am revoking your administrative access to the final presentation files. I have tasked Kevin, our summer intern, with finalizing the document. He possesses far greater flexibility than you do. Do not touch the file, Grant. Do not attempt to contact the client and fix your insubordinate attitude. You are bringing down the department frequency." I turned and walked back to my cubicle, my hands trembling not from fear, but from profound, burning fury. She had locked me out of the main server and was utilizing a clueless intern to commit corporate fraud. I sat at my desk and stared at my monitors. I was faced with a critical choice. I could keep my head buried, allow her to drive the department off a cliff, and hope I survived the crash, or I could arm myself for war. I opened a hidden, encrypted subfolder on my private cloud drive, naming the folder The Receipts. I began downloading every piece of raw evidence. Every email exchange where Chloe explicitly refused to review accurate shipping data, every time-stamped ERP inventory log before her manual edits, and every raw freight manifest. If she intended to cook the corporate books, I was going to ensure I held an exact duplicate of the original recipe. That afternoon, I initiated what I termed ghost mode. To any casual observer, I appeared to be merely an aging coordinator typing emails. In reality, I was conducting a rigorous forensic audit. While Chloe had revoked my edit privileges on the presentation software, her technical ignorance meant she had failed to revoke my read-only clearance on back-end freight tracking networks. She believed that deleting a line item in a spreadsheet made physical steel valves vanish from the earth. She failed to comprehend that every industrial shipment possesses a unique barcode. Every barcode maintains an immutable scan history, and every scan history records precise GPS coordinates. I traced the missing $145,000 inventory shipment. The crates had not been misplaced in a warehouse. According to the raw freight manifest, they had departed our regional distribution warehouse in Toledo 3 weeks prior. The official destination was listed as Thorne Assembly Plant B. However, when I cross-referenced the actual satellite telemetry from the contracted freight carrier, the GPS coordinates did not match Plant B. They pointed directly to a commercial self-storage facility located in an industrial park off Interstate 75. Why would high-grade manufacturing components be delivered to a public storage unit? I needed verified internal confirmation without raising suspicion. I picked up my desk phone and dialed Enid Gable, Harlan Thorne's formidable executive assistant. Enid was a woman built like a fortress who had guarded Harlan Thorne's executive schedule for over 25 years. Apex Logistics, Grant Sullivan speaking, I said in my standard professional tone. Enid rasped through the line, her voice sounding like gravel being turned in a cement mixer. Grant, if you are calling about Thursday's meeting, inform your puppet manager that Mr. Thorne is in a terrible mood. He fired an equipment vendor this morning for using improper paper fasteners. Enid, listen to me carefully, I said quietly, monitoring Chloe's office door. This is strictly off the record between two industry veterans. Did Assembly Plant B take delivery of shipment code 7789 on the 12th? A brief pause ensued, followed by the rapid click-clack her mechanical keyboard. Negative, Grant. We have been demanding those hydraulic valves for 2 weeks. Your internal system listed them as delayed in transit. Why? Just resolving a technical glitch on our end, Enid, I answered smoothly. You know how software updates can be. I smell smoke, Grant, Enid warned sharply, and Harlan Thorne despises smoke. I know, Enid. I am simply checking the fire extinguishers. I will see you on Thursday. I hung up the telephone. The client had never received the goods. Our internal system lied about the delivery status, and the physical freight sat in a commercial storage unit. I immediately performed a public records search on the registration of the storage lot. It was rented to a newly registered limited liability company named Jux Enterprises. A secondary search on the State Secretary of State corporate registry revealed the registered agent, Braden DuPont. My blood ran cold. Braden DuPont was Chloe DuPont's husband. This was not mere corporate incompetence. This was systematic wire fraud and felony embezzlement under federal law. Chloe was diverting valuable inventory to a shell corporate entity owned by her husband to resell on the industrial gray market, writing off the losses as transit errors and forcing me to cover her tracks. I saved the state registry documents, the GPS logs, and the ERP manifests into my encrypted folder, transferred the files onto an unmarked USB flash drive, and tucked the drive securely into my inside jacket pocket. The war was fully declared. Chloe just did not realize I possessed all the heavy artillery. Thursday morning arrived under a dark, torrential rainstorm that battered against our executive office windows. I wore my classic dark navy suit, my battle armor. When I arrived at 8:30 in the morning, Chloe was already pacing the conference room in a state of hyperactive anxiety, adjusting chairs and checking her reflection. Grant, she chirped nervously, hand me those backup data binders you prepared. We will not be needing them. She grabbed the thick folders from my arms and dumped them unceremoniously into a recycling bin. Kevin's assembled fresh presentation decks in these gorgeous binders with clear cover sleeves. It projects such a polished image. I looked at the glossy binders. They contained zero technical data, only colorful charts, stock photos of smiling workers, and her falsified inventory balance figures. Chloe, I said calmly, Mr. Thorne is going to demand a direct explanation for the missing valves. I will handle Mr. Thorne, she snapped, her superficial posture vanishing instantly. She stepped directly into my personal space. Here is your precise role today, Grant. You sit at the far end of the boardroom table. You take detailed meeting minutes. If Mr. Thorne asks a technical supply question, you offer a vague, optimistic response and immediately defer to me. You do not discuss transit delays, you do not bring up raw inventory data. You smile, you nod, and you allow me to close this deal. Do we have a complete understanding? I understand perfectly, Chloe, I replied, and I did. I understood that she was digging her own corporate grave, and she had just handed me the ceremonial shovel. At precisely 9:55 in the morning, the executive elevator doors slid open. Harlan Thorne stepped out into the lobby, drenched in authority, wearing a tailored charcoal suit and carrying a worn leather briefcase. Enid Gable walked directly behind him like a silent sentinel. Harlan scanned the reception floor. His sharp eyes passed over the terrified receptionist, ignored Chloe's desperate wave, and landed squarely on me. He did not smile, but he offered a minute, barely perceptible nod, the subtle acknowledgement of one seasoned professional recognizing another in a room filled with amateurs. I held his gaze and offered a single, firm nod in return. The message was transmitted. "I am ready, Mr. Thorne." Chloe squealed, rushing forward with an outstretched hand. "Welcome to Apex. We are thrilled to share our strategic vision for the upcoming fiscal year." Harlan looked at her hand as if it were a contaminated object, shook it briefly, and grumbled, "Let us begin immediately. I have a factory inspection in Detroit at noon." We assembled inside the main boardroom. Chloe took her position at the head of the long mahogany table. Harlan sat directly opposite her. I sat at the far end, designated as the silent observer. Chloe opened her glossy binder and began her presentation, flashing a brilliant smile. "At Apex, we do not merely move physical crates. We transport corporate dreams." Harlan emitted a low sigh that sounded like air, escaping a heavy truck tire. He opened his notepad, uncapped a heavy gold fountain pen, and began tapping it rhythmically against the wooden table. Tap, tap, tap. It was the steady countdown to an inevitable explosion. For 20 agonizing minutes, Chloe droned on, presenting slides filled with meaningless corporate buzzwords like holistic synergy and dynamic freight velocity. Harlan sat motionless, his face an unreadable mask of stone. "And here," Chloe announced triumphantly, turning to slide 7, "you can observe our operational efficiency metrics. We have achieved a 98% on-time delivery rate across all sectors, and our quarterly inventory shrinkage is virtually zero." The tapping of the gold pen stopped instantly. The silence in the room became absolute. "Zell shrinkage?" Harlan asked, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "Basically zero," Chloe replied airily. "Just minor routine balance adjustments." "Peanuts, really?" Harlan slowly opened a dark leather folder, extracted a single sheet of paper, and laid it flat on the mahogany wood. "That is remarkably fascinating, Miss DuPont, because my chief operations officer in Detroit reports that we are currently missing a critical shipment of hydraulic check valves valued at $145,000. Your electronic tracking system claims they were delivered, yet my floor managers never signed a bill of lading." Chloe did not flinch. She had rehearsed her cover story. "Oh, that specific order," she replied smoothly. "That was merely a carrier scanning error. Independent freight drivers frequently log deliveries early. The shipment is currently in transit and will arrive at your facility by tomorrow morning. Guaranteed." She was gambling everything on her ability to buy gray market replacements before he could verify the claim. Harlan did not look at Chloe. He slowly turned his head down the long table and locked his piercing eyes directly onto me. "Grant," Harlan said firmly, "is that statement accurate? Are those industrial valves currently in transit to my facility?" The room felt ice cold. Chloe turned toward me, her eyes widening in a silent, murderous warning. Nod, smile. Stick to the narrative. I stood up slowly, unbuttoned my suit jacket, and met Harlan's gaze. "No, Mr. Thorne," I stated clearly. "They are not in transit." Chloe's head whipped around, her face flushing crimson. "Grant!" I opened my leather notebook. "The inventory shipment was scanned as delivered 3 weeks ago," I continued, my voice echoing with total authority. "However, the carrier's satellite telemetry proves the crates were never delivered to your plant. The entire $145,000 shipment was diverted to a commercial self-storage facility in Lucas County." "Grant, stand down!" Chloe shrieked, slamming her palm onto the conference table with a violent bang. "Stop talking! You are making us look incompetent!" The heavy slap of her hand echoed off the glass walls like a gunshot. Her polished facade shattered completely, revealing a panicked, cornered criminal. "You are completely out of line," Chloe yelled, pointing a manicured finger at my face. "Get out of this boardroom right now. Otis, escort him out." The room went dead silent. Chloe was breathing heavily, forcing a desperate, terrifying smile toward Harlan. "Apologized profoundly, Mr. Thorne. Grant is experiencing severe personal issues and is deeply confused. I will manage the account personally." I closed my notebook quietly. I did not glance at Chloe. I looked directly at Harlan Thorne. He remained completely motionless, watching Chloe with the cold, detached curiosity of a scientist inspecting a specimen under a microscope. I picked up my pen, turned, and walked calmly toward the exit. As I reached the glass door, my mobile phone vibrated in my jacket pocket. I stepped into the hallway and checked the screen. It was a text message from Harlan Thorne. Step out. She is about to learn. Check your email in 5 minutes. Before I could even make it back to my workstation to retrieve my raincoat and briefcase, Otis, our lead building security officer, met me in the main hallway. Otis was a tall, soft-spoken veteran who had shared early morning break room coffee with me for 10 years. But today he looked deeply uncomfortable. Ms. DuPont called the front security desk directly. Otis muttered softly, adjusting his belt. She stated that you are to be escorted off corporate property immediately for gross insubordination and disrupting executive proceedings. She insisted you cannot return to your workstation under any circumstances. It is quite all right, Otis, I replied smoothly, patting his arm. You have a job to perform, and I harbor no ill will toward you. She told me to inform you that your personal belongings will be packed into cardboard boxes by Human Resources and shipped to your home address. Otis added, shaking his head in quiet disbelief. She said, you are strictly barred from accessing any company computer terminals. I let out a low, dry laugh. Chloe was utterly terrified that I would log into my computer workstation and extract additional digital evidence. She had zero knowledge that the physical USB flash drive containing every raw shipping file, time-stamped manifest, and state LLC registration record was already tucked safely into the breast pocket of my navy suit jacket. I walked out through the heavy glass doors into the pouring autumn rain, sat down inside my trusty 14-year-old sedan, and turned on the heater. The adrenaline that had sustained me through the boardroom confrontation slowly ebbed away, replaced by the grim, harsh reality of adult responsibility. I was a 49-year-old logistics coordinator who had just torpedoed his career to uphold basic professional integrity. My phone buzzed in my hand, an automated notification from our corporate human resources portal bearing the subject, official notice of immediate employment termination. There it was, black text on a white screen. I stared out through the rain-streaked windshield, watching water droplets trace chaotic paths down the glass, feeling hollow inside. Then, my phone began ringing. The incoming caller ID displayed a Detroit area code. Hello, Grant, the deep, gravelly voice rasped through the speaker. It is Harlan Thorne. I sat up straighter in the driver's seat. Mr. Thorne, I want to apologize for the scene inside the boardroom. Quiet down, Grant. Harlan cut me off, though his tone carried zero hostility. You did not create a scene. You halted a multi-million-dollar commercial fraud. I have suspected for over 3 months that Apex management was manipulating freight delivery schedules, but I lacked internal evidentiary proof. When you offered that subtle nod in the reception lobby, I knew you were preparing to drop the hammer. And when you read those exact storage unit coordinates, it was absolute poetry. I held my breath. You suspected them? I strongly suspected, Harlan grunted. I have just formally notified their executive board that Thorne Industries is terminating our commercial supply contract effective immediately for material breach of trust, misrepresentation, and fraudulent accounting practices. Their corporate stock valuation is going to take a catastrophic hit by tomorrow morning. I see, I murmured. Then I suppose we are both moving on to new chapters. Hardly, Harlan replied firmly. I am initiating a comprehensive, line-by-line forensic audit of every billing invoice Apex submitted over the preceding 24 months. I refuse to trust their internal compliance teams, and I require an independent expert who understands their back-end ERP software better than they do. Under federal whistleblower protections established under the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, 18 United States Codes, Section 1514A, you are fully protected from corporate retaliation. I am retaining you directly as my principal forensic auditor at triple your former salary. On Monday morning, I walked into the Apex lobby, wearing a sharp, tailored navy suit. I tapped my new digital auditor pass against the electronic scanner, which chimed high priority. Thorne Industries Senior External Auditor. I established my workspace inside the glass-walled boardroom, directly adjacent to Chloe's office. Chloe rushed out of her office, face pale as milk. What are you doing in this building? She hissed. You were fired for insubordination. Sit down, Miss DuPont, I said calmly. Mr. Prescott, the chief executive officer of Apex, stepped up behind her. Mr. Sullivan has been officially retained by Harlan Thorne as lead forensic auditor investigating federal corporate fraud. Mr. Prescott declared coldly. Under federal wire fraud statutes, 18 United States Code Section 1343, he exercises full audit access. Hand over your administrative credentials immediately. Over the next 3 days, supported by IT technicians Lyle and Sid, I systematically dismantled Chloe DuPont's fraudulent enterprise. We recovered deleted digital files, exposing fake vendor invoices, fraudulent freight diversions, and unauthorized wire transfers to Jux Enterprises LLC totaling over $300,000. On Wednesday afternoon, Chloe cornered me in the restroom, trembling in terror. "Please, Grant," she sobbed, attempting to bribe me with $100,000 in cash. "If this report goes to the federal prosecutor, Braden and I face years in prison." I held up my smartphone, displaying an active audio recording. "You have just formally confessed to felony embezzlement and attempted bribery of a forensic auditor," I stated quietly, her face twisted into pure venom. "You bitter old man," she shrieked. I walked out into the executive boardroom where Mr. Prescott, the CFO, and Harlan Thorne, via video link, reviewed my 40-page forensic dossier. Federal law enforcement officers arrived in the lobby, and Chloe was led away in handcuffs while her husband Braden was taken into custody at their storage facility. Mr. Prescott offered me the vice president position at Apex, but I politely declined. I launched Sullivan Forensic Logistics Consulting, securing Harlan Thorne as my founding retainer client. As I drove toward Detroit in the afternoon sunshine, watching Chloe's luxury sports car get towed away, I smiled. Real power lies not in corporate narratives, but in mastering the raw spreadsheets and maintaining an encrypted shadow log.